Let's go ahead and jump in. I am so thrilled to have the honor of getting to facilitate today's webinar. We have a very exciting topic here today. In case you're just joining late, I mentioned this earlier, but please feel free to use the chat feature. We love interacting with everyone. We're absolutely going to have a section for Q&A at the end of today's session. But chat in throughout. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your feedback, drop any questions that you have in there. Let's do it. Let's make it fun. So today's session is all about going beyond that normal KYC that we all know and love. And being that I'd assume that all of you are in a very regulated industry, whether you love it or not, you got to do it, right? But is that really the best thing? Is that where we need to be in today's day and age? That's going to be our big topic for today. So we're going to keep it interesting. I do want to introduce you to the folks that you're going to be hearing from today. You've got an amazing lineup. So I'm very honored to get to be here with both Mason and Lauren. So I'll do a quick introduction to them. We'll do a bit of an introduction about the organizations that you have represented today, but then we're going to just dive right in. We want to talk about what the problem statement is here and what the solution is to get you to the best possible place that you can be. So let's start. I'm going to start by introducing Mason. Mason, can you give everybody a wave?
Hi
There he
there.
is. Hey, Mason. So Mason Allen is the head of growth and partnerships at Reality Defender. He's a proven leader with over 14 years of experience driving growth for innovative companies. Mason's team at Reality Defender provides generative AI detection software. How cool is that? Okay. That it's really all about helping enterprises and governments at risk of deep fake driven fraud and disinformation campaigns. If that's not a hot topic today, then I don't know what is. Prior to being at Reality Defender, Mason was the first employee at a computer vision company called TrueFace, where he held multiple roles in leading strategy, marketing, business development teams, anywhere from pre-revenue all the way through to acquisition, and a technology roll-up focused on frictionless travel and security. Mason, I'm going to say it wrong. Is it Pangiam? What was the company?
Yes, a technology company called Pangiam that was
Okay.
focused on frictionless travel.
I was like, I'm going to really embarrass myself if I say that the wrong way. All right. And then an amazing speaker alongside Mason, the one and only Lauren Fury. Lauren is a principal product manager here at Proof, and she has over 15 years of experience in product and customer facing roles, helping to ensure the customer voice comes through in everything she builds. And I've worked with Lauren for a long time, and I can tell you that's the truth. Lauren has multiple experiences from anywhere building from 0 to 1, including the development of DocuSign's remote online notary solution. Pretty cool. Her latest fixation is helping financial services customers find solutions to protect and deter attackers who are constantly changing the space. And just a real quick introduction, you'll be hearing my voice perhaps a little too much today, but my name is Kelly Podersky. I lead the solution consulting and customer success organizations here at Proof. Similar to Lauren, and actually Lauren and I work together at that company we just mentioned as well at DocuSign, working on a remote online notary solution there also. But my passion really and big focus over the last decade plus, very much like Lauren, has been all about helping financial institutions to achieve those world-class programs and protecting both your organizations as well as your customers. Certainly very, very key. So I want to take just a quick minute to talk a little bit about who Proof is, in case you're not familiar with us, and then have Mason do a quick introduction around Reality Defender as well. So Proof, you may have heard of us. We were previously called Notarize. We rebranded about maybe 18 months, 2 years ago. And the main reason for that is we're all about helping to digitize and secure high value transactions across all sorts of industries. We started out as the first company to bring legal notarizations online. And since then, we've really revolutionized the traditional paper-bound processes. And it's all about setting a new standard for digital interactions. Fast forward to today, And it's so much more than just online notarizations. Not that that's not incredibly important. It's still the foundation, but we're all about now becoming this comprehensive, identity centric, that's the key piece here, platform. And it's designed to prevent fraud, ensure compliance, and secure all of your digital transactions. At the core of this, and I'd love, if you're interested in learning more, I'll give you an opportunity to get more information at the end. But at the core of this is the innovative Identity Authorization Network. What this is it's a groundbreaking system that cryptographically binds verified real world identities to your documents, your contracts, your critical actions. It brings them together. That's the real differentiator. Believe it or not, we have over 7,000 organizations that use us today. And a large group of them is our leading financial institutions. We also have a huge footprint in real estate firms and healthcare providers. Now, the thing is, we're all about empowering you, but also your end users, your customers as well, to make sure that there's trust and protection in every one of those different digital interactions. So it's just a little bit about proof. But Mason, I'd love to have you introduce a bit about Reality Defender.
Thanks, Kelly. My name is Mason Allen. It's great to be with all of you today. As Kelly mentioned, Reality Defender is a 45-person cybersecurity company. We are headquartered here in New York City, down in Tribeca. For those of you who are local. Our focus is purely on securing enterprise and government communication channels, communication and transaction channels. We know, and our sole focus being on identifying synthetic media, that deepfakes, I'm sure as many of you have known on this call, are becoming quite an issue today. So we've been focused solely on the deepfake problem for about 4 years now, focused primarily early on in 2020 on the 2020 election. Back then they were called digital twins. And we had the solution right and just the timing wrong. And obviously compute has caught up, which we'll talk about here in a little while, and made it really easy for just about anyone to create a very convincing impersonation through video, audio, and imagery for free and using just about any online platform today. So we're focused at Reality Defender purely on identifying those deepfakes, and we do so in real time by identifying them in where it matters most to our customers, who happen to be financial institutions and governments. We also take a multi-model approach, which essentially means that we've trained multiple models to be able to identify signals of manipulation and generation, thus increasing our surface area. Deepfakes obviously being a problem that are constantly changing, and new techniques are happening and being released on almost a daily basis. We're solely focused on maintaining robustness. In fact, deepfakes you can kind of think of as a next version of antiviral software, where there's always this cat and mouse game, and us purely being focused on deepfake detection enables Reality Defender to set up the organization so that we can quickly mitigate and also mitigate against new risks, red team our own models so that we're providing that constant robustness to our customers. But very happy to be with all of you today, and happy to get into this further.
Well, two things, Mason, before I continue on. First of all, thank you for simplifying that. I love analogies. The analogy of think of this as kind of like the back in the day virus, scanning type of tool. I think that's super helpful because as you're going through and saying that, I'm sitting here very thankful for people like yourself and your team that can help us with all of these very scary things that are happening right now and provide a solution that can make it easy. So thank goodness for that for sure. So I want to talk a little bit about what that change landscape is. I think that was a great, not only great analogy, but a really good transition. I mean, we are going through such a shift in the world, right? Virus scanning was so big. Now that's just obviously we're going to have virus scanning, right? So what does that next thing look like for us to talk about from AI, deepfake, all of that kind of stuff? So the fact is, whether you want to talk about it from a COVID perspective or not, I think COVID just helped us to escalate and get to a point much more quickly where, of course, we still have our in-branch interactions, but in all of the different financial institutions that I talk to daily, it's becoming so much more of a virtual environment, which is awesome, right? You have different business that you need to do in different places. You can go so much more beyond just what bank you want to choose. You can really go anywhere. Um, but that can be scary as well, right? Because how do you know that me, Kelly, I am actually me, Kelly, without being there in person with you right then and there? You know, the real threat is around generative AI. I don't think any of you would be here today if you weren't, already thinking about that. So call me Captain Obvious. It's totally fine. My family does that all the time. But that deepfake technology, it exacerbates identity trust issues over and over and over again. And it's not hard to do. It's not. It is getting easier and easier by the day to do that. So point being, we know that KYC is not enough. We've been mandated, though, and we've had to focus on all of the different components around know your customer. But my challenge is, given where we are right now, is it really enough? And that's not my challenge to you. Again, you know that's a challenge. This is a challenge to so much, just a much bigger you out there, right? So while the foundational idea around KYC can go ahead and verify documents, it's not necessarily connecting that to the verification of the person behind them. It's really just a limitation in the area or in the era of deepfakes. I did say era, if anyone's a Taylor Swift fan out there. I'm going to ruin this recording forever again, but era, deepfake era. Anyway, I digress. There's just a huge amount of gaps in the process. You might be thinking, okay, I do that over here and I do that over here, but how connected really is that? So without being able to verify, the living present person, we as businesses are still going to be vulnerable to synthetic fraud and impersonation fraud. It's just unfortunately what it is. So there is a report from FinCEN that talks about there's 81 billion, this is an $81 billion problem, and it just continues to grow. And it's all around identity related suspicious activity. So I should have actually mentioned this earlier. I think the term fraud is a very just generic umbrella term. What I think is really key about this number is it's very specific about identity related suspicious activity, because there's a lot of different types of fraud that you can see out there. Then specifically, when we talk about Gen AI fraud, this prediction from Deloitte is saying that this is going to be a $40 billion problem on an annual basis by 2027. It's a real thing. Deepfakes undermine both the digital and physical trust by simulating these real identities with increasing accuracy. And what's crazy is that these types of deepfakes can be like really a puzzle built in a million different ways. It's so difficult to predict what that looks like. Unfortunately, with all of the greatness that AI has given us, how many of you have looked up, can you plan me a vacation, right? Cool stuff. What should I have for dinner tonight? Very helpful. There's a dark side of AI, and it's real. And unfortunately, it's happening today. This is not a tomorrow problem. So, Mason, I think they've heard enough from me. I'd love to turn it over to you and talk a little bit about this from your perspective as well.
Thanks, Kelly. And a fantastic segue, because you're absolutely right. These tools that we're talking about today, generative artificial intelligence, as a group of tooling can be has so much benefit, right? It has so much benefit for creativity, for productivity, but much like any tool that exists today, the ability to use the ability for bad actors to use it to perform malintent, to extract financials, or to extract information is all too easy. So getting into how we go about addressing the problem, we're just here kind of to establish that there is one. So you see a couple of statistics in front of you that talk about the problems that I think most folks have today, that believe that they have today around the potential for deepfakes to harm their business. Part of the problem, I would say, is actually that most of these statistics are underreported. There is an opportunity. Obviously, it's been hard for most individuals and most enterprises to be able to really see if they have a problem of deepfakes, if they haven't been able to detect them previously. So it is a bit chicken and egg in that regard. But it's quite alarming that these statistics have popped up in the last 2 years, really since I would say GPT came out in November 22. So coming up on 2 years, there's been a Cambrian explosion of generative platforms across all modalities, audio, imagery, and video since then. That just made it so easy to take these tools and perform the things like social engineering and fraud that have been around for generations, since the dawn of time, really. But now the tools that enable them to perform them are so easily scalable with very little technical requirements necessary that it gets to a point that this is going to become a real problem. So let's just paint that picture a little bit more broadly. I mentioned that there's only 2 years ago did everyone suddenly become familiar with ChatGPT and generative artificial intelligence, period. But let's look back and sort of make that feel more tangible for you. So 2 years ago, I'm not sure how many of those on the call today are familiar with one of the more famous early editions of generative video, Will Smith eating spaghetti. You see that same type of look and feel on the V1 of Runway, a very popular video generation platform from 2022, where there's a lot of inconsistencies, some having to do with gravity. Obviously, they don't necessarily make sense. There's some temporal inconsistencies. As we move into 2023, it gets a little bit more real. Just a year later, like the sheen is gone. It does feel almost photorealistic. However, the temporal inconsistencies remain. As you see there on the right, the arm kind of goes through the glass of beer. That's obviously not possible. And for those of you familiar with Sora, which came out even earlier this year, those temporal inconsistencies remained. Some of their early videos had people disappearing in the background. Some of the things like dirt off of a truck just wasn't connecting quite right. But today, off Runway V3, and this is just one example, that is almost a standard issue beer commercial that you would see on any Sunday afternoon watching football. So from a creative standpoint, this obviously becomes much easier from a marketing and advertising perspective, and their ability to brainstorm and to create easy to use focus group material and go forward. But this turned into used by bad actors. You begin to get a sense of how real this technology begins to look. And in fact, it even goes past recording into real-time video.
So Mason, I feel like I was always good at figuring these things out because it felt like AI always made your hands look weird. Looks like
Yeah.
that's not going to be quite as much of a tell anymore.
Yeah, we won't cover imagery specifically here today in terms of like showing the differentiation over time, but you're absolutely right, Kelly. There is no more, third eyebrow or sixth finger. All of those have been abstracted away. Imagery today looks just as real as if you shot it with a camera, and that's for wholly generated images, not just even face swapping or some of the manipulation that's common today. But going back to video, as I mentioned, it's not just in recorded video that generative artificial intelligence has really taken off, but the next frontier, and I would say actually the final frontier and crossing what we would consider the uncanny valley, is real-time video. So on a call like this, the ability for a generative model to have enough compute to be able to react to a target persona, the person here in the back of the frame, in real time, takes a lot of compute, and that is obviously slowly coming down, but also a lot of training. Where this has broken in the past, and by the past, I mean even 6 months ago, is in extreme yaw and pitch angles. So if I were to move my face all the way here or up and down, the target template that I was trying to impersonate would not have fallen. It would have broken off. The pulling of the skin that you see there in the image would have broken the image. Pulling your hair through, or your fingers through your hair, would have also broken the target. All of that has, even in the past 3 months, been abstracted away from a training perspective. So we're beginning to see, and there are several instances we'll discuss here in a minute, of real-time video becoming a true concern for impersonations, not only in fraud settings, or they're committing fraud in settings where dollars would be transferred, but also for social engineering perspectives, which we'll get into here in a minute. So on the fraud piece, the identity theft on video calls, part of the controls that are in place today for high value transactions, for even account onboarding, as we see during an onboarding process and KYC, is sometimes either a liveness or a real-time video call will be the mechanism used to authenticate an individual. We're beginning to see instances where that is now being spoofed using real-time video as a attack on the bank or the authorizing party itself. So where a fraudster can simply join a conference call masquerading as a key person, I would say that there's also the ability for probably many of you, past even the financial implications of deepfakes being a problem, but also the social engineering ones, which we'll talk about here in a minute. FSISAC, which is their AI working group, an information sharing group of financial security professionals, recently came out with a fantastic paper that creates a taxonomy, a framework, and some potential controls around deepfakes. And one of the things that they consider as the biggest risk moving into 2025 is real-time video calls, and as well as the authentication during a KYC process. So it's good to see that financial institutions are beginning to know that this is a problem and do something about it. And let's just put this into perspective of this isn't just happening in a lab or in our minds, or there are actual instances of deepfakes affecting individuals, affecting companies that many of you on this call may have heard of before, but just for the sake of for everyone else, the largest instance that we've seen real-time video being used was earlier this year in February, where $25 million was taken as a chief financial officer, and actually two of his deputies were deep-faked in a live Zoom call, thus convincing the employee to actually send out those funds. We've seen CEOs be deepfaked quite a bit for scamming purposes, and actually this is another complete growing concern where brand protection becomes a target for bad actors, where the deepfaking of CEOs to elicit scams, to create misinformation campaigns is so easy to do now, because many of these CEOs are quite forward-looking and in social media and out in the media period. So their voice prints, their faces from all angles are easily available to train against, and it just takes about 30 seconds of someone's voice to be able to create a spot-on impersonation that can even spoof biometric voice authentication applications. So we're seeing a lot of executives being spoofed out and in the wild today. And that's even reaching the United States government, where Senator Cardin out of Maryland just recently, 6 weeks ago, was was a victim of a deepfake with someone that he had spoken with previously, a high-ranking Ukrainian official. The senator was only, I guess, really identified as this didn't seem right when the individual became very aggressive. So it just goes to show you that the real-time video that was breaking 6 months ago is quite convincing even to known parties today. And where most fraud, is sophisticated today, and where do the tools really really fit in. Now, obviously, there's application for deepfake detection to be applicable during account openings, during wire transfers, during notarizations. But there are plenty of flows that are now at risk because of deepfakes. So any type of high leverage, high value transactions, closing an account, creating a administering, doing administrative tasks like adding a new user or transferring dollars out to a new wire. Some of these controls are now at risk of being deepfaked as well. And the real need for a trust certificate comes into play to be able to have the robustness of being able to detect these attacks.
Yeah, you're spot on, Mason. And you might be saying to yourself, fortunately, we've got this pretty well covered, but again, as Mason just mentioned, it might just be kind of at that earliest part of the relationship, like that account opening piece. And then it significantly drops off from there. And it's a tough balance, right? We want to know who they are, but we also are always in the challenge for customer experience. I hear from so many of my financial institutions that I speak with that customer experience is quite possibly one of the biggest drivers in keeping people engaged and not losing them to the next financial institution. But I will say, true story. Unfortunately, I lost a parent earlier this year. And in taking over all of the financials for my mom, she had never done any of that stuff. I'm like, "Oh, that's one thing I can do to help." What I found to be interesting, but also frankly terrifying, was how easy or difficult it was to gain access into all of their different accounts. I will say 9 out of 10 times it was really easy. There was really only one account that I had to try a little bit harder to get into. And now, thankfully for me, I lost a parent. I don't necessarily have all the passwords, all that kind of stuff. I was able to get in there, but I also realized I could use that same sob story pretty easily and get through. So it's a whole thing. So the whole idea around getting to know your customer better is something that you need to start tying together, right? Knowing who they are at the beginning and continuing to know who they are throughout that. So, with all of this being virtual, with this rapidly evolving technology, I mean, Mason, that was really fascinating, but again, also scary to see just how quickly it's evolved in these last few years, let alone months and even weeks in your most recent example. Bad actors are always going to be faster. They're always going to be faster. They're good at what they do. So how do you really figure out if this person is real or not to the naked eye? And I think what we've seen here, I made a joke about the hands, but it was always weird. Like the hands were always weird, right? But that looks really good now as well. So what can we do? Because the other thing is we all know this, unfortunately. By the time we find out that we've been hacked, the damage is generally already done. So I'm painting a pretty ugly picture here. Again, you wouldn't be here if you weren't thinking about it already. So what do we do about it? Well, thankfully, the person that I go to solve all of my problems in general is Lauren. And I'm going to turn this over to Lauren to walk you through how we can make this not only something that is doable, but we also make it very easy. And it's going to be a very low friction for you and your customer. So, Lauren, I'd like to turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. And I think it's so interesting also to sit through these and see these videos and feel that weight of the $81 billion problem growing and the $40 billion exposure, and then feel like it hitting home. And I think something that I want to share with all of you is that even as a company, what we try to do is to feel that empathy, to get an understanding of the way in which these tools can actually really be deployed firsthand. And so something that we've recognized at Proof is it's fun to get in there and play around and explore how these tools are very accessible and how easy it is to actually use them and bring them into regular calls. So as Kelly mentioned, what I'd like to go through in my portion of this webinar is to talk about how do we respond to that? How do we take that recognition of this really big problem and that accessibility of this tooling and say, what are we putting in place to be preventative, to be thoughtful about this? as Kelly mentioned, I'm going to try and like set this context of where you find this application and how we sit within that broader context. But really, again, no matter the solution or no matter the situation, proof really does have solutions for you. So think about this as a flexible opportunity throughout that KYC process. But consolidation of your work into the suite, what that does is provide this full perspective across your transactions, across those behaviors, across those risk signals and identities which are engaging with your brand. So back into that identity authorization network, that correlation and kind of capture of who's interacting and when, that's that through line of, can we trust this person? How might we answer? Do I know who this is? Do I expect this person to be the one that's on the video stream with my agent? So again, our tools, and I'll take you through them a little bit more in specific, but they really contribute into that KYC process, primarily with that continuous monitoring. So using these advanced technologies and that persistent perspective across those users. So from notarizations here through those identity secured records, we have a lot of flexible but capable opportunities for how you deploy tooling into that KYC process. So how might we think about knowing our users in this way that is throughout their experience and lifetime with our brand? And how do we do it in a way that, kind of to Kelly's point, is still easy to use and convenient and familiar for our customers? What we don't want to do is over-index and service these attackers or make these processes hyper friction full because we want to really slow them down. We do want to do those things, but we also want to be in recognition that there are a lot of good customers that we have that need to go through these processes so that we're doing A, our due diligence, but also, and B, protecting their accounts. So it is a necessary experience that we are trying to balance this process of high usability, high intelligence and thoughtfulness, and how we catch the attackers as they come through. So the more use cases we support, you really are fueling that defend risk platform. But for today, I think where I really want to spend some time would be knowing your customers by getting them on camera. So that kind of interpersonal relationship and dynamic, like how do we start to forge that? And some examples of this really might be that hopefully these feel tangible to y'all, but if a customer is really trying to wire out some money and it's being flagged, sometimes it's just not enough to use SMS to send a text for yes to approve. There's been a lot of instances recently where I am with friends or coworkers and they're receiving these notices from their financial institution and it's asking for approval over a text message. How do I trust this? How do I know that what I'm saying, that when I'm responding, this is correct? Also, as the institution, how do I know that somebody hasn't manipulated that SMS phone number that I'm texting? So there's some questions in here that we really do need to start answering because the sophistication is growing. Another example of this might be someone calling your help desk. This is not limited to financial institutions. We've found this problem to be pervasive. So if somebody's trying to get into that account, take over an account, or leveraging an account recovery experience, what they really can do is exploit the customer help desk. These folks who are, trained to recognize, again, I'm dealing with a customer, I want to be supportive of that customer, I have some rigor to apply. What's that balance? What tools are we providing to those users such that they can really discern, am I making a good judgment call here? Am I, authorizing something which could be really in jeopardy of not only our business, but also our customers? So again, I think what this boils down to, in my opinion, is getting somebody on camera has a lot of benefit. It's really not just to catch that fraud. It's also to have this video record of whether or not there's a debate or a dispute. If a person claims that they got hacked and it really wasn't them that wired out this money, let's look back and see whether or not we talked about that, whether you called in, who talked to us at that point, and whether or not that triangulates against the you that we know, the consumer that's in the branch. So I like to think of this video component as really not only catching this advanced these advanced fraud techniques, but also handling kind of a security and a coverage for the financial institution as we think about that longer term relationship that you are building with these customers who are primarily digital. So in in these more complete ways, how do you deploy these solutions? That can feel also intimidating. Something that Proof is really taking into our own hands is making sure that this is easy to deploy. So Verify and Reality Defender, you'll see this live in the demo, but they integrate really seamlessly together, and they're very easy, no code to deploy into your workflows. There's no need for like a major overhaul, no need for a really rich integration from your teams. That is possible, though, if you'd like to have this really robust handling. We have that option. We can do both. The tools are also designed to be adaptable. So what we've also recognized in that entire runway into the demo is that this world is changing and evolving. Something that we keep center, especially my engineering team, is like we're always going to need to be on top of what the new threats are, how are we monitoring those, what tools are we providing these agents, but then also showing to y'all, you can configure those and give that sophistication of who can use what. That's at your discretion. So we can think about this as how high these step-ups go, how stringent we want to use the system to catch those step-ups. So a lot of configurability and adaptability at the base of this. But ultimately, the intention behind Verify and behind Verify integrating with Reality Defender is reduce those defect fraud rates, fraud detection, I should say, and mitigate any kind of risk that's coming through while ensuring that compliance. So again, in recognition of these KYC adherences you need to comply to, we want to be in support of those things. We want to augment those things. So let's, before we go into the demo, what I'm going to do before we hit play, Cal, will be, what I really want to do is, again, make this relatable. So in the demo, we can think of this as a customer attempting to transfer a substantial amount of money, but the 2FA or some behavior pattern in there raises a flag. Something's detected. We recognize that there might be something else that we want to unpack here. It could be a non-trivial amount, which is atypical for the account. Whatever the thresholds are that we want to set, the system detects the indications. There is a step-up action. In this particular step-up action, what you're going to see is that the platform will create that Verify meeting for that enhanced authentication. So I'm going to be taking you through how the agent, and this could be an agent that you are supplying, that customer help desk person, somebody at your bank from the fraud team, could also be from our side. So this is a conversation that we want to make sure we are opening up. A huge value add from working with Proof is that we have this notarization network. So that's an opportunity, is that the agent is from that point of view. But ultimately, we're showing how this agent and this client interact through this secure video call, and the agent will be prompting them with these readouts. Okay.
Ready?
So yes, it's going to go a little fast. I'll be speaking over it, but
just, I'll keep my finger on the trigger. If you want me to pause or back up, you just let me know. I'm here. Okay.
On the left, as this comes forward, you'll be seeing the client. So this is the one who currently cannot access that account. And on the right, here comes our agent. The agent has a number of tools on their screen that you can see. These are all at their disposal. They're helping to use, they're going to be using that to ensure the identity of this client. The first step the agent's going to take is credential analysis. So here you'll see that they are initiating this action from their screen, prompting the client to take a photo of their credentials with their phone. And the user is going to upload or scan their ID document through this secure interface. This step may use the computer, so they could use the computer. They can also use their phone. The benefit of the user ending up with their phone is it's going to give us a triangulation of geolocation. But Proof will run these credentials that are pictured, validating authenticity of that identity document and cross-referencing with expected formats, external databases, et cetera. The results are then shown to the agent, who can kind of have that additional discernment of, is this what I expect it to be? Does this look correct? At this point, the agent is going to go into another tool. This is using a credit card check. So this validation helps to triangulate whether or not this credit card that the client is using is valid, is associated with the billings that the user has shared. And it's another really great example of how an agent can begin to look across inputs and start making assessments on what the client is providing. And finally, for our demo today, the agent's asking for a selfie image. So this facial matching and biometric comparison is yet one more way that the agent can assess the user on the video and against the credential documents. Is this person who's now taking this picture the same one that I'm seeing on the video? It's using an additional camera to kind of see whether or not they are applying that filter or that deepfake into their computer camera. The information here now is what you're not, I guess, seeing is that there's accruing on the right-hand side there, that tool of our assessments, what risk score we're seeing against this user. And now we're seeing that this has been being processed for a deepfake analysis by Reality Defender. So I'll throw it to Mason and he can talk a little bit about the Reality Defender process and their ingestion.
Thanks, Lauren. And yes, as this moves through.
Okay, I was gonna say, like, you need to take a breath. Great job.
As this continues to move through, we've seen the deepfake detection run in the background of that authentication check. This would be sort of the user view, which would then be able to show every single verification and authentication that is being pulled into the Reality Defender platform via proof. So you're just looking at a quick dashboard that enables folks to be able to filter easily by type of modality and also date with a dashboard of potential manipulations as well as authentic assessments. And when we get into Lauren's actual authentication, what we're seeing here is the actual individual model analysis of the video that's being played. As I mentioned at the top of the call, we're running multiple models for each piece of media to increase the footprint and being able to identify different signals of manipulation. And as you played the video, we see that we've detected Lauren's face. And that's the analysis that we have run on, showing that there is no manipulation present, providing that probabilistic inference there, that Lauren is in fact a real individual.
Thanks, Mason. Yeah, so I know that went fast. I think something that we'd love to do is, and Kelly will provide means for this, is to slow that down for y'all. But as a recap of what you just saw in that demo, I think it's worth going through and kind of breaking that apart a little bit. Again, considering kind of this flow, how do things fit into the bigger picture? We started with that fraud escalation flow. So how do we detect risk, step up that process, and hand control to this human agent, this human operator, if needed? So again, that's kind of this balance of when do we want to be inserting a video dynamic based on behavioral triggers or other kind of detections, and how might we use that in both scenarios where we believe we might be finding an attacker, but also just in support of our customers and making sure we're building that relationship and building that identity understanding. You also saw that verify meeting. So that was really that shell of where the agent and the client are coming together, and the agent has provided that tooling. So the agent would help to initiate that video call. They would confirm that the customer's identity looks right with the tools that they're provided. They have that live verification. They look at the documents, and there's an accrual of all of that is provided to them post-completion. You also saw that Reality Defender integration. So that's where the entire video that we're looking at, we are sending a portion of that for Reality Defender's analysis through those models that Mason just talked about and through that really rich assessment that they provide, such that we know with confidence that this person either has a manipulation in that video or not. Again, informing that agent so they can take proper action. But really the results here is that Verify should really enable that rapid and thorough, secure decision-making from these agents. How do we kind of insert this person to do this in a way that is effective and human? Now we can do that through Verify with the Reality Defender integration. So hopefully that helps together provide that visibility into where we fit into this perspective of compliance with confidence, and how we can empower your teams to really act decisively in these high stakes moments at these high value, high lucrative, or very lucrative transfers. So hopefully that was really helpful. Again, happy to go through that more slowly at a future date.
Lauren, that was very impressive. Well done. Hopefully what everyone saw here is that there's a ton of flexibility. Lauren and Mason did an awesome job walking through multiple different scenarios and how the technology can work. With that being said, I will say it's hard to, hone in on what it is as you as an individual that joined the webinar today are really looking for. So, as fraud's evolving fast, trying to stay ahead of that is we just have to have these tools. And these tools, one of the things I think I heard Lauren and Mason say, but I want to just reiterate, is that the key thing is that these are rapidly evolving as all of these things are happening. Again, I go back to that slide for Mason where he pointed out, February, middle of the year, September, we have to keep up with that as well. So it's not just what you get today, but also what you're getting tomorrow as well. What I'd love to have you all do is just take a moment, grab your phones, scan the QR code. And what we can do is in a little bit of a slower form, we can learn about what challenges you have and walk you through much more of a personalized demo. When you click on that, you might need to scroll down to the bottom of the page. It'll give you some information, but fill that in and someone from my team will reach right out to you and we'll get that time set up. On behalf of myself, with Proof and Reality Defender, thank you all so much for joining today. We will make sure that we get the recording, the deck out to you. Again, I'll make sure that we answer any questions that we didn't get a chance to get to. But thank you, thank you, thank you. And we look forward to our next conversations. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.